The first time I hear about Atlantis, I was about 13 or 14. But it's like after I searched that little story, and it's like I wanted to know more. You understand? So at the age of 16, I ended up encountering a doctor, a scholar. And he told me some things about Atlantis. This is well known to African people. This is well known in all the ancient cultures. And it talked about this massive flood that happened in the Caribbean. Ancient Oriental philosophy tell you that it happened about 40,000 years ago. You know, they say all the old scholars talk about it. Enoch talk about it. Right? Moses talk about it. All the old scholars. The thing with the information is that it's scattered it all over. So, you know, it will take some effort to really search for the information to find what you're really looking for. But ever since, again, I hear the story about Atlantis, I was always fascinated. So, in doing my research now, I would come and I would look at places far off, like you're looking far off into the distance. So every time I come by the beach now, like over here in Tobago, this is Black Rock. And I would look just far off into the distance. You know, and all you will see is just ocean, just water. And according to all the ancient cultures, always seeing water here is where it had land. So basically we living on the mountain tops of this ancient land, right? The Aztecs call it Aztlan, right? The Greeks call it Atlantis, right? It had other names, Atalan. Even the Alaskans, the word Alaska is said to come from the word Atlantis. Right? You call it Aztlan, you call it Atlanta, you call it Atlas. So according to the ancient text, it had no continental drift. Right? All it really had was the landmass, and ever since this star dropped from the sky, right? In the Bible they call it wormwood. Ever since this star dropped from the sky, that is what caused this massive flood. So basically, all the area you're seeing here, all this is basically valleys. So if it is you look at Google, right? Google Maps, you would see where you're seeing the contour of the land as it goes deeper into the ocean basins, like the Caribbean Sea Basin and then outside of the Atlantic Sea Basin. So you had land covering all where you're seeing oceans. You have this massive underground valley of Black Rock running between Tobago, it connecting Tobago to Barbados. And that Black Rock Valley was once a part of the lower mountain tops of Atlantis. So all we have in the deep basin of the Caribbean Sea and the Atlantic Ocean is where you had these massive land masses, and you had all these giant people living here. Right? You had giant humans. You know, Enoch talk about this, it was in all the books. You know, it has so many excerpts from, you know, different cultures. And then if it is to check the local people of all these countries and you do your investigations and you find out about these people, they will tell you that this massive flood did happen. You know, so it's just a matter of doing the research and finding out from the local cultures, you know, how these stories pass down. Because a lot of the time these stories is be lost in translation. You know, we had so many variation of the languages over the few thousand years that, you know, these stories would have been slightly misinterpreted. But nonetheless, the ancient cultures will tell you, here is the scene. All here it used to have land. Right? And ancient cultures will also tell you that it had a time when this wasn't seawater. It had no salt. It was just fresh water. You can imagine an ocean of fresh water. You know how much life it will have in the ocean if it had fresh water? If you really do your research into science and the biology of the ocean and the biology of you know, rocks and underground caves and whatnot, it will give you all the stories that will add up to this massive story about Atlantis. You yourself will be able to piece it together for yourself. If it is yours ever wondering if it had a land called Atlantis, ancient cultures said yes. And my thing is that we of the contemporary age, I think that we should listen to the ancient cultures first and let them be the guide as to what we can really find out about this place called Atlantis. Because according to ancient cultures, we know this land as Tobago, we know this as Black Rock Beach, we know Trinidad as Trinidad. But the ancient cultures, the Taino will tell you, this land of Tobago was called Alubera, and then Trinidad was called Kairiani. And before that, it had different names that come down to the cultures that now lost in translation. But they will tell you that Trinidad and Tobago, as well as the Greater and Lesser Antilles, is the surviving mountaintops of Atlantis. These lands is not what we know as a country or island. It's a mountaintop of the ancient continent of Atlantis that survived the flood. They talk about different lands that survived the flood. They talk about the central southern Africa that survived the flood. They talk about the hills of Russia that survived the flood. And they tell these stories about where water was sweeping and passing through. And all the people who were saved from the rush of the flood. So it's important to understand the ancient cultures and understand that, we have to give them their credit. We have to give them their credit. We don't give enough credit to the ancient cultures, and I think that's the reason why so many of us are so confused about certain things, and we're still trying to piece it together. But we're trying to piece it together for ourselves instead of understanding what the ancient cultures were saying. My thing is, we don't have to go through all that. Just listen to the ancient cultures. They will tell you what they know from the ages that pass. So that now, with our investigation, our modern technology, we now could piece it together and say, hey, we could really confirm the ancient cultures was talking the truth. It really did have a land called Atlantis, and we live on the mountain tops of Atlantis that was saved from the rush of the floods. Christopher Columbus talk about it. Hernan Cortez, another explorer who come after Christopher Columbus, he talk about the same thing. Marco Polo talk about it too. These are the records you wouldn't really get to see, because you had to really do your investigations to find out for yourself. So we live on one of the surviving mountaintops of Atlantis. Caribbean people is real blessed people because we's one of the islands that survived the flood. And this is according to the ancient cultures: Taino, Arawak, Aztec, Zapotec, Yucatec, all the Mesoamerican civilizations. Big up to the ancient cultures that set the foundation and give us all the knowledge we need in order to figure out this whole thing. This is a big puzzle. You just have to understand we live in a major part of the puzzle. Yeah, shout out to all Caribbean people. Yeah, much love.